Hi, I'm Dr. Andy Pivonk. I am the head clinician here at ScoliCare East Phoenix in Gilbert, Arizona. And today we're going to teach you how to properly mark a Cobb angle. So this is a good video for a clinician looking to increase their knowledge, or also for parents and patients, because sometimes you may get that radiology report from the imaging center and you may look at the curve and be like, I wonder if that curve's marked properly. So this would be good instruction on how to look at that and assess it and see if they marked it right. Because about 50% of the time when I look at a radiology report, it's pretty obvious that the radiologist has incorrectly marked the Cobb angle. And that can have big ramifications on what treatment we provide and when we provide it. So it's always good to have the right numbers. So the title of our presentation today is Proper Methods to Mark Accurate and Reproducible Cobb Angles in the Assessment of Scoliosis. So a little background on the Cobb angle. It was first used by Dr. John Cobb. He developed it in 1948 to assess spinal curvatures, both scoliosis and hyperkyphosis. It has become the universally accepted gold standard method for diagnosis and assessing scoliosis and hyperkyphosis. It has been shown to have good intra and inter-examiner reliability, and the highest reliability is shown in those clinicians who have been properly trained in how to mark the Cobb angle. If you want a great resource for how to assess scoliosis images and also how to mark Cobb angle, this is a great one in radiographics entitled Scoliosis Imaging, What Radiologists Should Know. It's in their November-December issue in 2010. So the first thing we want to do when we're assessing scoliosis is we want to use the proper scoliosis x-ray. So the proper view to take is a full spine standing scoliosis view taken at 80 inches with the pelvis and the femur heads visible, so we can assess the Cobb angle and assess bone age. It's very important to include those because if we aren't able to assess bone age properly, then that can affect the treatment and the outcomes and what treatments we apply at what time. Next thing, we want to have proper patient positioning. This is really important. Patient positioning is critical to reliable and producible Cobb assessment. So the patient should be standing. They should have their feet about 28 centimeters apart from the lateral calcaneus to lateral calcaneus. They do provide foot templates that you can buy to consistently position the feet. We also want to make sure that we're right on the central ray. And positioning is critical because if you have a squirrely child and maybe their feet are too close together or too far apart, it's going to affect how their pelvis is, which can affect how their lumbar spine is, which can affect their coronal balance. So it's very important to have good, consistent foot positioning, natural, relaxed posture, arms at the side, not arms abducted, because that can cause shifts in the posture left and right. This is a good example of that. This 6-year-old went to the largest children's hospital here in the Phoenix area, and had this x-ray taken because the family has a history for scoliosis, and they showed that, she's got an 18-degree lower lumbar curvature. So the parents were looking at it and they kind of wondered, so they came to me for a second opinion, and I did a physical exam on the child and I could not see any external signs that she had scoliosis, and so they asked me to take a new x-ray. So I retook this x-ray with good patient positioning. Here you can see they have her arms abducted from her side, and they said they didn't really position her feet well, so I put her in a foot template, kept her arms neutral, just let her stand natural, and then took this x-ray. You can see that 18-degree scoliosis now measures 0.5. So she doesn't have scoliosis. We're still going to monitor her because she does have a family history, but right now we don't need to worry about it. And then, so number 3 step is we're going to determine the primary and secondary curves. How many curves do we have and where are they? So in this case here on this x-ray, we can see we have 2 obvious curves, right? In situations you can have 3 curves, but on this x-ray we only have 2. The primary curve is typically going to be the one that looks most displaced, most rotated, and the furthest away from the midline. It's also possible to have 2 primary curves and have a double major curve. So it's not always going to be 1 curve and then a small compensation curve, or just 1 big curve. Sometimes you can have 2 primary curves. We're then going to determine where are our apical vertebrae. So this is really important. So the apical vertebra is always going to be the most horizontal and the most laterally displaced, so the most shifted away from the midline. So in this case, on this film, the upper apex is T10, and the lower apex is actually the disc between L2 and L3, this disc space right here, because this vertebra is tilted down, this vertebra is tilted up, so the disc space is the most horizontal. That's not uncommon to have a disc space be the apex. Once we find our apex, then we're going to have to find our superior end plate. Now we want to look for the most tilted end plate. This is the most critical thing, finding the most tilted end plates, because that's where most people go wrong. They don't go to the most tilted end plate, and then they underassess the curve. So we're going to take from the apical vertebra and work our way up. In this instance, our most tilted vertebra is going to be T6 on the superior end plate. So we're going to draw a line across that end plate out into space, and then we're going to go back to the apical vertebra, and then we're going to construct our inferior end plate. So we're going to go to the apical vertebra, work down and find that most tilted inferior end plate, and then draw an end plate line across that. And then to connect these two lines together, now if you have a PAC system that figures this up, automatically it'll just determine what your Cobb angle is. But if you have to draw all four lines, then you're going to draw perpendiculars off these two superior and inferior end plate lines. So on the superior end plate line, we'll make a 90-degree perpendicular, bring it inferiorly, and off the inferior end plate line, we'll make a 90-degree perpendicular angle and bring it superiorly so that those two lines cross. And then that intersection is going to be your Cobb angle. So this intersection right here is your Cobb angle. So then you measure that, and in this instance, this measures 25 degrees. So that is a braceable curve, treatable curve in an immature child. But let's say that you don't choose your end plates properly. Maybe you go a couple segments up or a couple segments below, and you find the not most tilted end plates, and you measure this and it turns out to be 12 degrees. Now in this situation, your recommendation may just be monitoring, but in reality, you've got a 25-degree curve that needs immediate treatment in an immature child. So again, it is super duper important to correctly mark these Cobb angles so you can determine what treatment needs to be rendered at what time. So I hope this video has been helpful. Again, I'm Dr. Andy Pivonk with ScoliCare East Phoenix. If your child or yourself are experiencing scoliosis or hyperkyphosis, you can certainly contact our office here in Gilbert. Our number is 480-892-0022. You can also find us on the web at scolicare.com/east-phoenix-arizona. This is Dr. Andy with ScoliCare, where we provide the right treatment at the right time.